All right, then, we should be live. Woohoo!
Hello.
Once again, we investigators of the Cthulhu mythos are here to talk about our discoveries, our readings, our delving into the books of Lovecraft to basically just talk about the stories. And we're down yet again, another investigator. Rina was away last week. She had an appointment in the Arkham Asylum because the stories had driven her mad. So she's obviously, her sanity was blasted. She couldn't come in last week just to face the terror of, what was it? I can't remember what we read last week. Oh, the Nameless City. And Nameless, I think the Nameless City.
And this week, spacebunzz can't join us, unfortunately. She also went to the asylum.
No, she messaged me. She said that she heard the bane. She heard the bane of some immense hound in the distance, and she's on the run from it at the moment. That's why she couldn't come in this week.
Yeah, she's on the run from the real scary Cthulhu.
So an immense hound is plaguing her at the moment, and this is the real scary Cthulhu. Look at those eyes. Look into the eyes of madness. Look into the eyes of Cthulhu. Anyway.
That he had the eyes up over his head, you would have no idea that it was supposed to be a monster like at all. It's just
yeah, you look at it and you think it's a squid plushie.
Yeah, he's too one little cute, tickling his tentacles. It sounds rude, it's not tickling his tentacles. Anyway, we read Azathoth and The Hound. I thought I had loads of time, and suddenly. Yeah.
What do you mean,
Oh, very short. Azathoth was very short, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suggested you read the next story as well. Because I don't think we could have gotten an hour out of just talking about Azathoth.
No, definitely not. We don't have to do an hour, but yeah, it's but we started with Azathoth. I sort of I thought I had loads of time, and then suddenly it's 7 o'clock, and I'm like, oh my god, I've got to listen to these stories again or watch these stories again. I'm not even open the windows that I wanted to open.
I was also a bit late with reading. Been reading Akira, so I only read the 2 stories today.
Yeah. I think I listened to The Hound.
Right before the stream, I read this.
I like to listen to it as well as reading along to it, so it's quite cool. So anyway, so Azathoth with the first story, which is literally just like a page long. It's very short. I'm going to read something from the Wikipedia. It says Azathoth is the beginning of a never completed novel written by H.P. Lovecraft. It was written in June 1922 and published as a fragment in the journal Leaves in 1938 after Lovecraft's death. Apparently, that wasn't published until after his death.
Reading it, I thought it was maybe meant to be a poem with the way it was.
Yeah, it's kind of poetic, isn't it? It's kind of.
It almost felt like a poem.
Yeah,
I wonder if Lovecraft felt he was dying, because it almost seemed happy. That there's something happy in the poem, right? In the poem, sorry. I just, as I read it, I thought, wow, this is the most optimistic thing we read so far.
Did you think it was optimistic? I didn't think it was optimistic.
Like the freedom. Like he tells his freedom of finally the stars coming down to him.
There's even a line. Yeah. There's a line that he uses too. Yeah, because I thought, because the first time I had to read it twice because I had 2 different theories. So the first time I read it through, I thought it was like, somebody like breaking free of the monotonous, routine of everyday life.
Yeah. I thought it was someone finally going crazy and being happy.
But the second time I read through, I actually thought that it was about death, about somebody passing, because this line, noiseless infinity eddied around the dreamer and wafted him away without even touching the body that leaned stiffly from the lonely window. So, it talks about him getting whisked away to this great place, and the world is full of color, and it's, sun and, endless fields.
He's finally happy.
But that one line where it's like, it came and it took it away from the stiff body on the window, I was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about death.
I'm not sure if it was death, actually.
I didn't think of death, but now Mr. Gray mentioned, I thought, did he write it before death? Did he knew he was dying and he was finally happy?
Right.
But I don't think it was that. I thought it was someone going mad but being happy because he's finally not in the monotonous reality of before, but is with these far happier and more interesting visions.
I kind of was reading it more like literally. He was literally taken away. I was thinking it's part of the dream cycle because he talks about stuff not of this world, of dreams. There was a man who traveled out of life on a quest into the spaces whither the world's dreams have fled. So I got this kind of impression, because I know he does this story cycle called the dream cycle, where like people actually, when they sleep, they go into this dream world, and there's all these different lands and like, you know, geography of this dream world. And this guy, if you read in this story, it starts off really bleak about in the future when the world, it seems like they're really like an industrial kind of world, grey cities rear to smoky skies, tall towers grim and ugly, in whose shadow none might dream of the sun or of the spring's flowering meads.
Very melancholy.
Oh yeah, very like kind of like.
I felt that towards the end it was like the most optimistic thing that I've read about so far. Like finally there was something remotely close to being happy.
Yeah,
not really, but
yeah. Well, the thing, the world that he was living in, like he couldn't even look out the window and see the stars, or as he leaned out. We looked out his window, all we saw was walls and other windows, and there was no view outside of his window. So it was work all day, go like in this horrible, stifling.
I actually thought when the stars took him, he was gonna fall off the window.
Yeah, maybe he did.
This is what you get for dreaming. Yeet.
Yeah,
maybe he did, and like he went into, you know, once he died, he escaped the world. But yeah, who knows? But yeah, but he was like every night he'd stare out the window and look at the stars and dream about the stars, and he started sort of naming the stars and following their course across the heavens, kind of thing.
It kind of made me think of Robert Frost's poem, "The Woods." Like in the end, where I'm finally going to rest when I die.
Well,
that made me think of that, of how he seemed to be quite happy, not happy, but as close to happy as in Lovecraft's stories so far.
Right. Well, and that's why I was agreeing with Greyman that, you know, it seemed like it was very dream related. You know, he kept focusing on the stars and dreams until finally he got there. But it was that one line. It was that one line I read earlier that it seemed to me. I was like, why would it describe specifically the stiff body left behind? That's why I was like, wait.
Yeah. So it's like his soul left his body.
More a metaphor. That was more metaphoric, where his mind finally left this depressing and melancholy place.
Yeah, I think he stared out the window at the stars for so long, wishing to be in a different world, wishing to be away from the humdrum, away from the dark and the nasty and the horrible world that he lived in. And I think he dreamed and wished it so much that eventually he was whisked off, whether his mind snapped and he believed he was whisked off to another world, or whether he died and his soul left to maybe a heaven or something, or whether he was
maybe finally left to search the stars like he always wanted.
Yeah, so maybe, but that was definitely the sort of the gist of it anyway. But it was just like I just like the just the wording of it, just the way it's worded and the description. Like you say, it's very poetic, very descriptive, like of all this, you know,
almost like a poem. I was thinking, wait, is this a poem then?
Yeah,
it's not a poem. But yeah, it was quite. It had such an optimistic feeling. I was almost thrown off. I was like,
it's kind of like I think it's very pessimistic, but it's got happy at the end because he gets away from the horrible. He gets away from the nasty, horrible, and goes to a place where, you know, all this beauty is.
Yeah,
it's interesting to know that this was supposed to be a novel and it was written before he died.
Yeah,
almost feels like he knew.
Well, no, I think it was written quite. No, it was written. It was written quite a long while before he died. It was written in 1922. But it wasn't published until after he died. So it was written in 1922.
I wonder how it was gonna turn into a novel, really.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming
it kind of feels like it's a one and done, really. But
no, it would have followed the person's body into the dreamland, wouldn't it?
Probably.
It would have followed him. Yeah.
May I say that, not related, but now Sharon and Mr. Kurt are back. When Rina wasn't here, they didn't care about us.
Yeah, we never mind.
We were at the office and we were working. That's why.
Yeah, no, he did later write. he did later write a novel with a similar theme, which was called The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. I think Kadath was the name of a city in the dream world, in the dream place, you know. So I think that's where. Yeah, I think that's where he would have gone.
A better surname, Melancholy Craft.
Melancholy Craft. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of melancholy and like, just down, depressive kind of.
I'm Mr. K.
AK. Yeah, that was it's a good little story. And I just like the language of it, you know. It's kind of like feels like old school kind of language, doesn't it? But you still understand what he's talking about. And I like the pictures that he paints with words. I think are pretty cool.
I think it's the most coherent of his stuff. Not coherent. The one that I understood the most without having to reread it again.
There are some words that he does use some words that are a little bit. You have to sort of go, well, what does that mean? Then I have to look that one up quickly. And he'll mention stuff like names of old gods and like mythology, that kind of thing, doesn't he? Occasionally, will mention something like that, and you have to look it up. But there wasn't so much of that in this. But yeah, I just think it
does make it seem like Lovecraft really wasn't happy in life, was he?
No, probably not. And I wonder if
how melancholy a lot of his stories really are.
Yeah, well, I wonder if maybe there was an element of that in the story. Maybe he was looking out the window and seeing like the walls and windows on the other side of him,
and escape this depressing life.
Yeah, he could have a certain element of that, couldn't it? Want it to be like doesn't everyone? I mean, in some instances, sit there and go, "Oh, I wish something else was happening," or "I wish something else could happen in my life. I wish something exciting happened, or something awesome happened." You know, and maybe he took that element. You might have taken that little element and just blown it off into a big story kind of thing. It's like extrapolated on it. Take a little nugget, that little acorn, and grow it into a big oak of a story. You know, although it didn't turn out to be a very long story, but yeah. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
That was a good one. It actually reminds me, I have a quote glued to the door called, "My life is so much more interesting inside my head."
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it was for Lovecraft, really.
Yeah, true.
Oh, don't worry, Sharon. Your daughter's about to become a world-famous author one day soon. And then you will be.
Yeah. Okay,
and she's going to buy you that Porsche you always wanted.
I don't know if Mom would drive a Porsche, honestly.
I don't know. That's the first car that came to mind.
She'd have a chauffeur drive it for her.
True. If you're going to go rich, go full rich.
Yeah, you might as well. Yeah, why would you drive it yourself? So yeah, that was cool story. It's strange. I don't know why he called it Azathoth. Azathoth is later used as the name of one of his demons, one of his like major sort of characters. It's apparently I think it was the first time.
The name. I thought it would be something very evil.
Yeah, I think it's because Azathoth, you know, Nyarlathotep, who we did a few weeks ago. Nyarlathotep is like the messenger of Azathoth. So he's like the servant of Azathoth, basically. And Azathoth is when he went through.
Did he name it or who published named it? That's the thing.
No,
because this was published after his death, so maybe they.
I think his name was already because Azathoth is used later on. So I'm assuming there's actually a picture of it. Let's share the thing again. Maybe if I can share this, actually you can see. Let me just show this actually quickly. Let me share this page again. On the Wikipedia page, there is actually a picture of, I'm assuming, the original. Oh, that's the wrong one. Where is it? There you go. Original manuscript. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Oh yeah.
It's a bit too small, isn't it? Let me see if I can blow that up at all. I'm not sure if I can. Can I blow that up? Like showing a full screen. Is that any bigger?
Yeah, it's a
little bit.
Oh no. Thought that was going to make it bigger. It's
still kind of hard to see.
Yeah, but you can see it's a handwritten. That's the original handwritten version, completely with little crossings out and stuff.
Right.
Okay, so when you enlarge the screen on StreamYard, you can see it better.
Right. Yes, you can see it's written.
It is called Azathoth.
Yeah, you can see it's written there, and apparently there is and the other page is telling you about. He named it after, I think it was Azazel. There's a demon called Azazel, and Where is that blinking one? It's I go to the
Is that
actual
like the comic character is Azathoth?
I think it was Azazel. Let me just see if I can find the actual, rather than the actual short story. Let me see if I can. Right, Azathoth is a deity in the Cthulhu mythos and dream cycle stories of H.P. Lovecraft. He is the ruler of the outer gods and may be seen as a symbol for primordial chaos. So the first recorded mention of the name Azathoth was in a note Lovecraft wrote to himself in 1919. So that's 3 years before he wrote the story. That simply read Azathoth, hideous name. So obviously you must write notes when you do your stories quite a lot, Rina. So he obviously had his own journal, his own book where he'd write notes to himself. So he obviously he thought up Azathoth and he decided that was the name he was going to use.
Interesting. Why though?
Yeah.
I don't know. He just thought it was a horrible name.
You think if he used that, but for a story that seems rather
well, I'm assuming that he had plans for Azathoth to be written into the story. That's only that was only the opening sort of gambit. I'm assuming he was going to go to this dream world, and maybe it wouldn't have turned out good for him. Maybe he thought it was going to turn out good, but when he gets there, it's going to turn out that it's going to be a nightmare rather than.
You think that they edited for it to be like this? Because if it was started out as a full novel, does that mean that was the first page of the novel?
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, he never got. No, he said he never got to finish it. He didn't finish it. He
but it's just that he wrote the one page like this.
Yeah, but
because it seems like it's quite optimistic. Was just shit gonna hit the fan later on?
I'm assuming he just started working on other bits. Like he was probably working on a few stories at the same time, kind of thing, and never got back to it, kind of thing, you know.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I suppose that happens if you're writing lots and lots. I suppose there's some stories. Maybe he just didn't get the muse. Maybe he thought he started it, perhaps, and everyone was like, you know what? I'm not really feeling it now.
I'm not going to continue this one.
Yeah, I'll do it later, kind of thing. I'll go back to it later. Yeah, give Rina a few more years. She'll have bits and pieces all over the place of half-written books and like first pages and chapters that are discarded when she moves on to something else. She already has, really. When you think about the first book, you said you took characters out and that kind of thing, didn't you? And rewrote it a few times. So I suppose it's just another thing like that.
Who got it all? I mean, after H.P. Lovecraft died, who did he leave all his writings to? Because it looks like he didn't really. Maybe he had more family, perhaps.
It might have been August Derleth. August Derleth was one of the people he wrote to, and I think because a lot of his correspondence, I think maybe they had it left to them. I'm not too sure, really. That's something we have to maybe we'll look that up for a future chat.
Just interesting who got it published later, really.
Maybe they fell to his publisher. I mean, if there was partial copyright between him and whoever he is his publisher or his partner.
I don't think so, because they all that's why they're all kind of in the public domain now. I think because they never had a proper publisher. I imagine the magazine just like paid him for one story. I don't know if that meant they had the rights to it forevermore, but obviously not, because other people were able to publish it later, weren't they? So I'm assuming that maybe they just hired it for the one. I don't know how it works. Let's not worry about it. Let's just go to the next story, which we can have some knowledge of.
Interesting who took all of these and like who did they belong to? Did people go to whoever had them and asked if they could take them and publish
I will look it up. I will look it up for a future date and we can go through it. But I'm guessing that some of his correspondence, like, because I know that I think it was August Derleth. When they got all the works, he decided he wanted to keep them alive. Even though because Lovecraft had never been that popular in his lifetime, so he decided to sort of reprint them all under a publishing house called Arkham House. I think the company was called Arkham House, and he reprinted all of Lovecraft's works. And he just carried on from there.
Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've not actually come to Arkham. Arkham's not been mentioned yet in the stories that we've read so far.
I don't think it's even in this book. The Arkham. I should really look up next time in the bookstore that other. There's another book there now of H.P. Lovecraft stories, but different. I don't think Arkham's not here.
Now, it might be mentioned in passing in one of the other stories, though, quite possibly. I think he might have mentioned the Shadow over Innsmouth. I think Arkham might be mentioned. I think Arkham is just down the coast from Innsmouth. I can't remember now. But anyway, let's go on to The Hound The Hound, I couldn't really remember the Hound.
Okay, I got a question. Do they mean hound like dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't understand. I went to see. Apparently, hound is also used as to say following people. Another word for following.
It can be to it can mean to hound someone. Hound them. Yeah, it could mean that.
I couldn't figure out if I was reading it correctly. You know me in words sometimes. I'm like Elric. I need assistance.
Yeah. Well, it was a hound, but it wasn't quite a hound, was it? Because it was a winged hound.
Not entirely, but I was wondering, am I reading this correctly? Does this actually mean a hound, or is it something else? I don't trust Lovecraft anymore. I have to check. Yeah,
it's always a good idea. Now, so this story tells about two hedonistic kind of guys.
Saint John, and the narrator. Saint John.
The narrator is the narrator is almost similar to the guy from Dagon, because at the very beginning he's like, "I'm going to blow my brains out in a minute." Because then the guy from Dagon said, "I'm going to."
From the guy from the Nair Lefferton.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's the same poor bastard. Lovecraft just reincarnated him and forced him to die again by a different monster.
I think that's the most popular character in Lovecraft, unnamed narrator. It's the most popular.
He's almost as well known as Cthulhu.
Yeah, yes, unnamed narrator. He's seen something and makes him want to blow his brains out, and he starts to tell us the story of what's happened.
Yeah,
basically, him and St. John were a couple of hedonists.
Suicides.
Yeah, they were a couple of hedonists, and for some reason they've gone from like, I don't know, drinking and bacchanalia, whatever the heck they were getting up to, orgies or whatever, to like grave robbing. Suddenly I think they've been reading the Necronomicon as well.
Orgies?
I'm assuming so, because it's the way they say it.
I thought it said they were atheists. Or did I read the word wrong?
I don't remember atheists being mentioned, but anyone can have an orgy. You haven't got to be. That doesn't matter about your religion. But there was something about the stuff they were talking about. It was like Baudelaire, how he seemed to soon exhausted the thrills. So it sounded like they'd searched like all these thrills till finally there remained for us only the more direct stimuli of unnatural personal experiences and adventures. So I just got the idea that they like talked about the enigmas of the symbolists and the ecstasies of the pre-Raphaelites. All were ours in their time, but each new mood was drained too soon of its diverting novelty and appeal. So I got the impression they tried everything. I'm assuming, bacchanalia, orgies, that kind of thing. That's what I read between the lines.
All I get was that they were looking, their thrills was to rob graves and to dig out unholy and evil things out of them, which always works out so well for people,
But that came after all the other stuff that they'd done before. That's in next sentences. They seemed to be.
I didn't really fully understand all this stuff.
Yeah,
we skipped right into the grave robbery.
Yeah, but they didn't go straight to grave robbing. I think they'd done lots of other things in the past. Possibly, like I sort of picture them as being like these people who joined these magical groups in Victorian times, like Crowley and the Order of the Lamp of Thoth, I think was the order in Yorkshire, and they were like the Hellfire Club stuff like that.
In those centuries, people are up to stupid things.
Yeah, exactly. People in them days, there was the poor, the very, very, very poor, and then there was the people with so much money they didn't know what to do with it, and they would spend it, on bloody frivolities and like debauchery and hedonistic lifestyle. And I just got the picture from that kind of like paragraph, a few lines, that they'd been there, done that, and they were bored of all the stuff that they'd tried before. It said something. What was that line that it said? I did read the line that kind of summed it up for me.
Yeah, the only thing that brought them excitement was this thing.
Yeah, it was this. Yeah, basically they'd been there and done that, and so they and I think they must have been dabbling in the occult as well, because you don't suddenly start digging graves
because they mentioned reading the Necronomicon.
Exactly. Yeah, they mentioned that's right. So and
the prophet Abdul.
Yeah, Abdul al-Hazred, that's right, yeah.
Abdul, or how do you say it?
Abdul al-Hazred, the writer of the Necronomicon.
Yeah, so they also mentioned reading about the, in Holland, the grave they dig up that starts all this shit, that,
the amulet?
The
talisman that they took from the grave.
Yeah.
Emerald. The emerald.
Well, it was made out of jade.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it was made out of jade. It was a carved. So basically, yeah, it's kind of weird. They're like grave robbing now. They've made like a hidden museum in the cellar of their house.
They live in the stone house. They say.
Yeah, with like skulls and shrunken heads
and
old gravestones.
Trinkets.
Yeah. And they kind of almost made a ritual out of their grave robbing, because they talk about the experience of grave robbing was ruined if you did it in the wrong light, or didn't they? They mentioned that at some point. They wanted the right atmosphere for their grave robbing. It's kind of really weird and kind of.
Yeah, it's like, Johns, how about we go out to rob today? Nah, the moon's too bright. Nah, let's not do it today. The moon's too bright.
Yeah, exactly. The moon isn't exactly the right size in the sky. Let's go when the moon is completely full to give us that exact atmosphere that you want. But then all their years, I'm assuming, of grave robbing and collecting stuff for their dark museum that's in the cellar of their house, they decide to go to this reputed grave of what they call a ghoul like them, so a grave robber like them who died 500 years ago, and then we get the whole atmosphere.
He was sort of a hybrid between a werewolf, a demon, and a vampire. Based on how it's told.
There was a bit of a vampire.
Because he also said wings. It makes me think of a monster, vampire creatures in movies, where sometimes they have the skin wings here.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it was more like demon kind of thing. I reckon
like hellhound. Yeah.
Yeah, he made
kind of. They did make me think about the vampires and werewolves as well. The method of killing.
Definitely all that kind of mythology. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of things combined into one.
Yeah, quite possibly
the creatures in the Nameless City.
Yeah.
Or they had the head of this, the jaw of that.
That's right. Yeah, the alligator and human and seal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so
a lot of creatures. Did you end up reading it, Rina?
No, but there are a lot of creatures in mythology that that do that.
You should give it a read. I'm interested to hear what you would think about that one. Well, let me know later if you do.
Yeah.
How many stories do you think Lovecraft did publish, Mr. Gray?
I'm not sure. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look it up. I mean, I think
probably over 30 at the very least.
Yeah, with short stories, I think he must have done. Yeah. See if
it's close to even 100.
Yeah,
could very well be.
Well, yeah,
if I can find these
stories he has.
There was a list somewhere of his writing bibliography. Let's go to bibliography. Oh no, that's not right. No, there wasn't on another page before where it gave like a list and the years of all of his stuff, but I can't find that page at the moment. So anyway, they dug into this grave. There's all these large bats around, larger than expected. I kind of like the atmosphere as well of how it's all described, like the ivy on the church. It points out, and one he likes to sort of descript is the unfriendly sky. I think he said. Did he say it was unfriendly sky? Do you remember that line? And I just thought that was a kind of interesting descriptive. Like something about the sky was something about the sky was so sort of horrible looking and so like dark and misty that it somehow seemed unfriendly.
I could go back in time and meet Lovecraft. I would say, man, what was friendly about your stories exactly?
Yeah.
Everyone dies or commits suicide.
That's right. Well, they steal this amulet from the grave, don't they? Which is like carved in jade. It's like a dog with wings, like a winged dog, isn't it? And they recognize it. They recognize it as being significant to corpse eating?
Didn't they say the amulet looked a bit like a sphinx as well?
That's right.
A human face and a canine.
It kind of made me think of like Anubis.
By the way, is the sphinx based on a dog and a human? I always thought it was a cat.
It's like a lion, isn't it?
It's a dog. It's the dog deity. It's like the Tower of Death.
I mean the Sphinx.
The
I know
Sphinx.
Anubis is a dog.
I think the Sphinx is lion-like. I always thought.
Yeah, lion and a human.
I always thought it was a cat, more like not a dog. Yeah, I know Anubis is quite cool.
Hi,
Mr. Ross.
Let's have a look. I was trying to find the line where.
Hi, Mr. Cap.
Where they, oh yeah, there we go. The ghastly soul symbol of the corpse-eating cult of inaccessible Leng in Central Asia.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We recognised it as the thing
Must have been one hell of a dinner party.
Yeah. The ghastly soul symbol of the corpse-eating cult. So that's what it is. This thing is a symbol of the corpse-eating cult. That place.
Some people like their meat raw, but this is.
Well, maybe they eat the corpses, but the fact they're eating dead bodies is not good. But there are like other references to ghouls as well in Lovecraft stories. I think it's the Rats in the Wall. I think that's the one that's got some ghouls in it, and also the Pickman's Model has a ghoul in it as well. But I can't remember where I was going now. Yeah, so they steal this amulet, and they kind of like keep thinking they can hear a dog howling in the distance. The sound of
the baying.
Yeah, baying in the distance.
Yeah. And they think maybe we're just imagining it.
Yeah, and then when they get back, yeah, because
I think Lovecraft created this trope of getting something that belongs to something demonic, thinking,
possibly,
it's a good idea. Let's take it with us, and then getting royally fucked.
Yeah, don't steal from graves.
Right. It kind of reminded me. I had just seen a Supernatural episode recently. It's the one with the hellhounds in it, where it's like they make the.
I never watched any Supernatural.
Yeah, no, they make a pact with a demon, and like 10 years later, that's when their soul is due, and they send hellhounds after them. So these people here at the hellhounds.
Never make deals with demons.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Lovecraft created the whole taking something that belongs to a demon and then getting screwed afterwards.
I might have got it from like stories of mummies, because if you think about mummies, quite often like there'll be mummies' curses, won't they? And like do not take anything from this the mummy. The curse will come for you.
Dog. Return the slab or something.
It could well have been Anubis.
That freaked me out when I was a kid.
What's that?
That Courage the Cowardly Dog episode with the slab. Because when I saw that because the ghost is in 3D, as a kid, I said, "Holy fuck, what is that?"
I didn't see that one. I did see a couple of Courage the Cowardly Dogs, but I don't remember that one.
You should. It was freaking awesome. Oh, Mastodon is here.
Yeah, cool. I was only streaming for a little bit earlier on as well. He was showing off some comic books. Yeah, so they start hearing things around because they live on the moor, don't they? They live on the moor, kind of isolated.
Isolated, and so they never hear anyone knocking, and suddenly they hear all this noise. This interesting why the hellhound. It seemed it took him a while to.
Right.
Isn't interesting? Because it was in stages. Like they slowly started hearing, then they saw someone near the window, then the weird footprints.
Yeah, it's like almost like he wants to scare them, to put fear into them, because like you always hear it far off in the distance, don't they? Every time you hear the baying, it's always like a suggestion. And in fact, sometimes they're not even sure if they're hearing it or not. Which makes you think maybe how much of it was in their heads. I mean, who knows how much it was in their heads? Like you hear something.
Part though, but when it reaches, after St. John's is murdered, and he goes back to Holland to return it and gets stolen. Like that very same night, the family stole it, gets slaughtered.
That's right.
Slaughtered in that same day, but it took him a few days before he killed St. John's.
Maybe it emerges at night from Holland, flies all the way to London, and so it's trying to find them. Maybe it spent some time trying to find them. Maybe that's why it wasn't attacking straight away, because it's trying to locate them.
He was just playing with his food.
Yeah, that's another option. But when it was located, when he got stolen off him in Holland, then the people who stole it all got wiped out. That was much closer. So he was able, whatever it was, able to get up from the grave. Because I couldn't work out I couldn't work out if it was the dead guy himself who was actually rising up from the grave himself.
It must have
been.
It
must have been
because
yeah.
The skeleton.
And in the end, when he goes there and he digs it out again, he sees him sitting there with all the corpses of the bats around him, smiling.
Yeah. Well, the bats seem to like have some kind of element to it as well, because they sort of swoop down, didn't they, to the ground as if I don't know if maybe that's part of his spirit.
Flying after him in the end.
Yeah. And then somehow they were in the grave as well, so I kind of thought they were like swooping down. They were like able to, I don't know, go through the earth. I don't know, like ghosts, like spirits or something.
No, remember when they dug him out? After they just left, they took the amulet. The bat swooped in then.
That's right, yeah. And they were in the ground when he dug them up as well. So I'm thinking they might have been like.
Does that mean they didn't put the earth on the grave again? They just took the amulet and left?
No, they covered it up because when he came back, he had to dig through it again because he said it seemed easier to dig in than it did before, kind of thing. I got the feeling that maybe the bats were kind of like part of his essence, and he could send the bats out from himself to, I don't know, spy for him or something like that, and then they could drag them back in again.
Corpses. I thought it meant that he killed them to consume their blood.
I didn't see the bats weren't dead, were they?
Nah, because he said when he digs it out again, he sees all the corpses of bats around him. I just assumed that this creature just drank their blood, killed them as well.
No, they're not dead. It says, for crouched within that centured coffin, embraced by a close-packed nightmare retinue of huge, sinewy, sleeping bats, was the bony thing my friend and I had robbed. Not clean and placid, and we'd seen it then, but covered with caked blood and shreds of alien flesh and hair, and leering sentient at me with phosphorant sockets and sharp and sanguine fangs, yawning twistedly in mockery of my inevitable doom.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's almost kind of like it came back to life partially.
Yeah. Maybe it's like in the first Hellraiser movie where the guy needs blood in order to come back.
To come back, yeah. I don't know.
Every time he gets more blood, his flesh grows, his bones grow.
I think the bats weren't real bats. They weren't like bats, like they were much larger than normal. I think they're like kind of like ghost bats or spirit bats or some kind of demonic
vampire bats.
Yeah, but not like. I think they were ethereal. They weren't solid, so they were able to go through in the ground into the coffin where he was, because that's where they were in there.
More or less regular looking bats, because the narrator in St. John's don't mention how like these oddly shaped bats.
They look like they were larger bats in a way. They said the bats were very large. They're much larger than they expected the bats to be. Yeah, but I think they weren't kind of fully solid. So otherwise, how would they be able to get through the ground to be sleeping in the coffin with him? So was it then that he was sending? Were they part of his spirit? Like maybe some kind of dark soul that he was sending out to do his bidding? Because he didn't seem like he'd left the ground.
Interesting about the part with the vulture. Remember when he came in? That one thin vulture came.
Well, the vulture must have smelt the blood of the corpse of that was in, because it was coated in blood, wasn't he, and bits of flesh. Yeah. So maybe the vulture smelt that, and he was hungry, and he was coming down to see if he could.
Clever vulture, because he was killed with a spade.
Killed him with a spade. I'm not sure vultures are even resident in Holland, but maybe they are. I wouldn't have thought so. Seems a bit weird.
What if the bats were the hound? Because they mentioned that the hound was on wings, and and you don't see the hound again. As soon as he gets back to the grave, you don't actually ever see the hound. You only hear it.
Yeah.
So, but then he mentions like this winged creature after, and so I assume that was the hound.
Yeah, you can see shadows.
He got out of the grave and started flying after him.
If we are assuming that the bats are like spiritual or demonic or that kind of sense,
shapeshifting.
Bats were the hounds.
Yeah, they could be shapeshifting, couldn't they? They could maybe form form into shape of hound, form into shape of bats, like some kind of strange Transformers or I don't know what their ones. What's the
maybe he's then the big leader bat.
Were you thinking the Wonder Twins?
Something like that, yeah, possibly, yeah. But I think it's a superhero thing from old TV show. Yeah, I think once again, like there's no like it's not written in black and white exactly what happens. You have to sort of make your own story and kind of imagine your own. And I suppose some respect when you can imagine things, you can imagine things more scary than it necessarily has to be. Like
the unknown is more scary.
Yeah, it's as scary as your own imagination makes it, isn't it? Really, I suppose.
Yeah.
But he's not killed outright afterwards, though, is he? He's not killed outright. It's like he knows he's going to be killed. But the
thing is chasing him. He runs away, and he's about to take his revolver and blow his brains. He's just just going to find somewhere to hide and do it.
Yeah, I think he knows it's going to come for him sometime, so he doesn't want to wait. Maybe he doesn't want the anticipation of never knowing when it's going to finally kill him. So he'd rather kill himself rather than never knowing when it's coming.
I wonder if this means after the amulet was stolen, if he could just have gone back to England. Because now the amulet was again in the possession of the creature.
Yeah, it might have been better.
Does that mean he could have gone back? Or would he have forever been haunted by these sounds?
We don't know because that's not how the story was written. But you're right. He could have maybe once it was out of his hands, maybe if he'd just gone home, he would never have heard the baying of the hound again.
Yeah,
but maybe
he doesn't hear it after the amulet's no longer in his possession, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he doesn't really hear it anymore.
I don't remember that, but if he said that,
but he's still hell bent on going to plead with this creature.
Yeah. He should have never dug into the ground again, maybe, but he did. Maybe it's his curiosity. Maybe he wanted to see, and as soon as he did, he wished that he hadn't, and decided that.
I think a Ouija board would have been safer.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah. So it's a cool story anyway. So I enjoyed that one. Like you say, he was kind of like a vampire-ish in certain respects. When he talks about his fangs a fair bit, but then obviously, I mean, there are stories of because vampires can change into wolves, can't they? They can change into hounds. I think they can change into wolves. They can change into bats. So maybe has
been mentioned in older vampire stories.
Yeah, so maybe there's like an element of the vampire story too. But also you got the
he's canine.
Yeah, he's kind of like his own mythology. The corpse-eating god of Leng or whatever it was called, the corpse-eating cult.
Yes, it's kind of a combination of a demon, a vampire, and a wolf.
Well, when you think about it, with the hound, the amulet being winged, maybe it was half bat, half dog. So maybe you could take the form of both. Maybe you could take the dog form, the bat form, or like a bat hound. maybe it's Bruce Wayne's dog. Could it be Bruce Wayne's dog? Bat hound?
I didn't know that was his actual name.
Yeah, it's called Bat Hound.
There is a Bat Hound. I think there has been a Bat Hound.
I think in more modern times he has a different name.
Ace.
I think Ace the Bat Hound. Yeah.
There's a bat to everything, isn't there?
Yeah, Batwang.
Even bat underwear.
Yeah.
A bat's toilet and bat's toilet paper.
Probably.
Yeah, Ace. Because I read that last year. I read that Batman 1000. So there, Ace was mentioned.
Right. I'm just reading the last chapter again. Yeah, I think he knows that the death is coming for him, so he decides rather than waiting for it to come, he wants to kill himself because he says now.
There's a question if he would have died anyway, even if he returned to England.
I think he would, and he didn't want to get ripped to shreds. He says, now as the baying of that dead, fleshless monstrosity grows louder and louder, and the stealthy whirring and flapping of those accursed web wings circle closer and closer, I shall seek with my revolver the oblivion, which is my only refuge from the unnamed and unnameable. So, yeah.
Well, and even if he was left alone, you kind of gotta wonder if he would have just been mad, kind of the way the narrator.
Yeah, like the guy in the first story in Dagon. Yeah,
because the Dagon
just gone nuts.
The Dagon guy lived. He didn't get sacrificed to the giant. minutes, but he's still.
Although you would think a guy that's been digging out all this demonic shit and seeing it and learning about you think he'd be a little more resilient in the mental department.
Yeah.
Unless he didn't think all of it was too real.
Yeah, but before it was just like dead things. He didn't think anything was real. I mean, I think when they went to, I think it was all like a game to them, wasn't it? It was just like they were like bored.
Like a thrill, like thrills.
Yeah. Like, oh, we're gonna dig up corpses, dig up graves just for our own amusement. We're gonna store them in our own little museum of dead stuff. Like, and when they actually discovered that there was something else out there, real, something a real.
Then they started to panic.
Yeah.
Like, no, but interesting. What do you think happened in that part where he was like sleeping and someone knocked at his door and he said, "Come in," and then he heard laughter.
Yeah,
that was the creature coming, which makes you think if that was the creature, he was toying with them before killing.
Yeah.
Because if he could get into the house, or maybe he couldn't. No, but he was invited. I was thinking maybe he couldn't get in because he wasn't invited in, like the old vampire.
Yeah. Right.
But the narrator does tell him, "Come in."
Maybe it was like the spirit of him. Maybe there's like, you got the hound, you got the bats, and then maybe that was just like a ghost visitation of the guy in the grave. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good point. I don't think you're never going to know. You have to just kind of like make up your own mind and just. I think you just say he was just like a scary element to add the scares to him, kind of thing.
Because you'd think if he could already reach them, he would have already.
Yeah, like you say, maybe he wanted to punish them by putting the fear into them first. Maybe he didn't get out much.
To freak out his victims, and then after that, only kill them.
He's been in the ground for 500 years. Maybe he wanted to stretch his legs and like get a bit of enjoyment out of it.
And jaws.
His legs. Yeah. So there's no fun in like just killing them straight away. You want to have a bit of.
He wanted the sport.
Yeah. Poppy, you want to come say hello?
They think Lovecraft was thinking about suicide for years with all these. Cat!
She's not coming. Come on, Pops. Come say hello to. Come and say hello to his letter. And Rina.
Come on, Poppy. Join us for some Cthulhu.
Yeah. No, she's not. She's her own. She's her own girl. She does what she likes.
Does she have a collar now?
I don't think she's got a collar. I'm sure you've got a collar.
I saw something red. I saw something red around her neck. I thought.
No, she hasn't got a collar.
Oh,
she doesn't go out. She's a house cat, so she never gets to go out. We live on the second floor here, so she's sitting on my lap. All right, Pops.
Yay!
What book we got next? We've got anything else you want to say about that one? I think I quite enjoyed that story. It did its job, didn't it? It's like
I quite like the first one. How suddenly there was a bit of optimism in there. Kind of again threw me off. I was like, "Is this something happy? No one dies. Turns crazy, kills themselves."
I would think it's more mysterious and actually
Lovecraft,
happy.
are you all right?
Weird.
Are you feeling good, mate?
Oops.
Aww, Poppy.
Sleep, Pooh.
I never noticed how ginger she is.
Yeah, she's kind of like a tabby, black tabby kind of thing. So she's got
like
like
a tabby, Mr. Gray. What does that mean?
That kind of mottled kind of look.
It's like a tabby calico, almost. She looks like.
Yeah, something like that.
Instead of the stripes,
Poppy, give us a smile. Cats can smile, right? Never mind.
Puppy.
My cat.
Look at the people.
My cat.
Everybody wave a puppy. Everybody wave a puppy. Look,
look at Poppy.
She's like, I'm out of here. Silly humans. There you go.
Well, at least we got to see her for a bit. Yeah, these two were quite good.
I think.
I thought the Hound was a lot more also exciting. There's actually some action in it, unlike the last the Nameless City had a bit of action, you could say, but
a little bit,
not much. But unless you count camel action.
And it kind of
by the way,
like
that poor camel all alone.
And it kind of had a monster as well, didn't it? It kind of had a monster that was definitely there. Like in the Nameless City, he was just exploring and he was seeing things, and at the end, he realizes that that the things that he saw were actually had actually lived. It wasn't just statues and made up stuff. It was there actually were these reptile creatures, and in this one there was actually a monster from the off, wasn't there? We heard the baying of the monster. I mean, it's kind of like a classic kind of like getting their comeuppance kind of story as well, isn't it? Because they've spent all these years like meddling with people's graves and stuff, and like I think they would
have been safer than having a seance.
Yeah, they stole from the wrong grave in the end, didn't they? They definitely they dabbled too long with grave robbing, and they
one grave
too many.
For it.
Oh, sorry, Pops. You come under. Come under, Pops.
The thing about Lovecraft, though, is all of his descriptions are really good. I mean, like even in the first one, he went from describing like this bleak and dreary city to like this.
Yeah, but they're still quite confusing as well.
Yeah,
you have to read them over twice to even understand.
He does use a lot of fancy words, but I mean, his descriptions are really well done.
Yeah. Well, he must have been quite popular in the magazines after all, because he was asked to write more stories.
Mm.
I reckon if they didn't really bring any sales, they might have. Although, I guess it didn't fully depend on him, the sales of magazines. After all, there were probably multiple stories.
Plenty of other people doing it. Yeah, there was loads of people writing, weren't there? Loads of people writing.
I wonder if he had any fans that wrote him, told him. Really enjoyed your bleak stories. Really wanted me to go get a noose.
Yeah, I need to read a biography. I need to read a biography of his sometime. Actually, a more in-depth biography to find out what he was like, how well he was received, and that kind of thing. I know he was kind of like not well off for quite a lot of his life. So
Alexa also mentioned that.
Yeah, I think he kind of like had he was like kind of poor. I think he was a bit like, because the family had been rich, and I thought he was raised.
But then his dad went to an asylum,
and they were raised possibly to think they were better than other people. So I think he wanted to earn from his literary work. He didn't want to go out and do a proper 9-to-5 job. He wanted to do his literary stuff, and so he didn't sort of want to go out and get a job that getting his hands dirty or anything like that. He wanted to be a writer, and so he stuck with it, even though it wasn't.
Or perhaps not. Perhaps it's just. Well, it was quite a loner, though, wasn't he? Maybe he just didn't want to be around people either.
Yeah, that might have been one of the elements to it.
That might have been also a reason why he preferred to do writing, because then he could sit in his rented room or wherever he lived and just write and not have to face anyone, really.
Yeah. That would fit with my Halloween days.
That would have been good.
Yeah, anyway, I thought both those stories. I mean, I've liked all the stories so far, actually. I mean, I've always liked stuff. I'm biased because I
like
stories.
The Hound the most so far.
Yeah.
The first three, they were okay.
Yeah, I think the first, because they're quite short as well, aren't they? It kind of doesn't, so you don't sort of doesn't give you time. It doesn't paint a long enough picture and give you enough sort of build up or escalation or anything like that. It's just. Yeah, it's just like short, tiny snippets, like a tiny little bit of introduction. Something happens, they're all dead. That's kind of it, sort of thing. Or they're all doomed, or something nasty's going to happen. Alienist creatures. That's it. I'm throwing myself out of the window now. It's like normal person discovers something that completely blows their mind and makes them feel that their place in the world.
Well, you know what would have been hilarious? If Lovecraft was alive during the time where they made Men in Black, where everyone, like all the aliens around the agents, like this is completely normal. The agents, how completely normal if it was walking around hand in hand. I wonder how he would have reacted to that. It would have been like,
no, we can't all be friends. Aliens are here to kill us, not to be friends with us.
Yeah, but like imagine you saw your fuzzy Cthulhu. It'd be like, what have you done to him?
Yeah.
Not meant to be cute.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be an existential terror and dread, and you can tickle his tentacles at night before you go to sleep. It's like it's just not on.
Yeah, it's just not on. What the hell is happening?
Yeah.
No one ever do a seance for Lovecraft. Let him think we all think it's scary.
Yeah, and that's kind of. I think that's kind of like a sad element of the fact that you never knew how influential he was. He died.
Well, neither did Van Gogh. Van
exactly.
Gogh had the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of it.
I mean, and none of his art was appreciated when he was alive, but once he died,
it's like my channel.
Was beautiful.
My channel is going to be massive after I've gone. It's going to be like, people are going to be coming to my channel in droves after I've popped my clogs. It's going to be like, damn, why couldn't that happen when I can appreciate it? Like the 7 people here is nothing. It'd be like 7 million every video when I pop my clogs.
Perhaps. Actually, one of those 7 people is me.
Yeah, well, that makes it even better. What story have we got next week?
The festival.
Oh, that's one of these early ones. I think that's one of these earliest ones, the festival.
The festival. And the most exciting the week, in 2 weeks, we read Cthulhu.
The Call of Cthulhu. That's quite a long one, that one. Is that?
That one is the longest. I'm going to have to start it immediately as soon as we finish the stream. Because that one is pretty long.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to The Hound. We hadn't actually read through a couple of bits. So that it was written in 1922, September 1922, first published in the February 1924 issue of Weird Tales. It contains the first mention
a weird tale.
It was a Weird Tale. Weird Tale is one of those magazines that's featured quite a lot of his work. It contains the first mention of Lovecraft's fictional text, the Necronomicon. Yeah, the Necronomicon, the Book of Dead Names. I'm going to actually go and look through the synopsis and see if it says anything towards the end. No, he basically doesn't say anything that we didn't already sum up, really.
Oh, that reminds me.
Yeah, it doesn't actually say anything. I think we kind of summed it up nicely to what it says here in the summary on Wikipedia.
Oh, what does it say there?
Just basically, what we say, but in different words, really. But it's got a little bit here about the Hound contains several references to the body of lore known as the Cthulhu mythos that Lovecraft shared with other horror writers. Most notably, it marks the first appearance of one of Lovecraft's most famous literary creations, the forbidden book known as the Necronomicon. Lovecraft had mentioned its author a year earlier in the Nameless City, but here for the first time named the book. There you go.
Our good old Abdul.
Yeah, Abdul Al-Hazred.
Went crazy so we can have the Necronomicon.
Yeah. I think the idea, it's the kind of idea is that I think Cthulhu visited him and made him go mad and like basically influenced him to write the book kind of thing. That's the impression I got.
Oh, is that mentioned in the Nameless City?
No, but I think that's what I've read subsequently. I've read. I can't remember where I heard it, but I think he was driven mad by Cthulhu, and I think Cthulhu sort of wrote the book through him, kind of thing, like using him like he.
I don't know, Mr. Ross. I think you should give up on that idea.
Apparently, he got the inspiration after visiting a churchyard. Apparently,
yeah.
Maybe
that's why the St. John's. That was the name of the church.
Let's have a look. On September 16th, 1922, Lovecraft toured the Flatbed Reformed Church in Brooklyn with his friend Reinhard Kleiner, writing about the visit in a letter. He said,
he had a friend he actually interacted with.
Yeah, and a few. Around the pile is a hoary churchyard with interments dating from around 1730 to the middle of the 19th century. From one of the crumbling gravestones dated 1747, I chipped a small piece to carry away. It lies before me as I write, and ought to suggest some sort of horror story. I must place it beneath my pillow as I sleep. Who can say what thing might not come out of the centured earth to exact vengeance for his desecrated tomb? And should it come, who can say what it might not resemble, is what he wrote, apparently. Interesting.
Mr. Gray, back then they would just call someone St. John's?
I'm imagining that he was... I don't know, why would he call it? Yeah, St. John is just a surname. Probably like Ian St. John.
Okay.
Terence St. John is his surname.
That was quite an odd name.
Yeah,
I thought he was referring to some priest or something.
No, I think St. John is just
your
a
friends
surname.
with the priest?
Yeah. Just reading a bit
Probably.
more. Right. Now, yeah, nothing else really. Should have missed before. I've run out of time to read it. But so look, though Lovecraft chose The Hound as one of the 5 stories he initially submitted to Weird Tales, his main professional outlet, he later described it as a dead dog and a piece of junk. So he didn't like his own story.
No.
I guess there was too much action in it.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, it's too actiony. I don't like it.
One of his people who like followed in his footsteps, Lynn Carter, called it a minor little tale that is slavishly Poe-esque in style. But someone else said
maybe he didn't like it because of the maybe like if our narrator just left, he might have lived. Right. And it was like, nah, that's too optimistic.
Yeah, we're gonna have to kill him off. But interesting.
We can't have someone live and survive. This kind of reminds me of Jane Austen. She also hated Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah. So this is Lovecraft stories. You either go mad or die. That's it. Go mad or die. Go mad or die. That's the choices. That's the choices, really.
Yeah, that's it. There's nothing else. That's why all the games.
No, sorry. I'm mistaken. There is a third choice. You can go mad and then die. That's the third choice. That's perfectly acceptable. So it's go mad, die, or go mad, then die.
No, you go mad and go mad and kill yourself. That's the third choice. You either go mad, you either get killed, or you go mad and kill yourself.
Yeah, good point. I suppose we should differentiate between dying and killing yourself. I suppose they are slightly different.
Well, no one actually dies. They're more killed by demonic things.
Killed or kill yourself, yeah.
As in Nyarlathotep and Nigel, the narrator doesn't kill himself. He gets taken. The fifth choice, being taken to hell.
Yeah, being taken somewhere else.
That probably still qualifies as death, though.
It doesn't have to be hell, but it's somewhere else. Like even in the Azathoth, he gets taken somewhere else, doesn't he? We don't know if he's going to a better place, or a worse
but that one's actually optimistic, unlike the others. That was actually
Well, he leaves the Earth, which is all dark and gloomy, and he sees nice colours and gold and vortices and stuff like that. And but yeah, maybe that was just a front, and when he actually gets there, it turns into be a hellhole. Maybe it's like he's being led into a false sense of security with beauty, and suddenly
I think that's what Lovecraft wanted to do to us. He wanted us to think, this is going to be optimistic. Yeah. And finish reading, everyone's gotten mad and killed themselves again.
Yeah, could do that. That's definitely an option. Anyway, we must wrap this up now. We've been over an hour. It was cool chatting to everyone. Thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, so next week we're gonna do the festival.
The festival.
To tune in to join us.
There's a heavy metal band called Swamp Cult who brought out an album called The Festival, all based on this story. So if you guys want to check that out for research, then feel free. Swamp Cult, The Festival. They're actually a Dutch band as well.
What a name!
They're a Dutch band. They're a Dutch band, so maybe they come from. They might come from that cemetery, you know. They might come.
Why didn't they name their album The Hound? That would have been so appropriate.
Maybe the next album will be The Hound. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, cheers for tuning in, everyone. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I imagine so. They've not done anything for a while. The festival was a couple of years ago. But,
I imagine hell's like Black Friday.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. No. Gosh. Yeah.
Crowd. Okay. Everyone's screaming and fighting over whatever.
Yeah, scraps of a
whatever. Cat?
Yeah.
Is that
Where?
Someone meowed. Well,
Poppy's at the end of the bed. I didn't hear her meow. She might have. She does do some meowing quite loudly every now and again. Normally on Wednesday I would have done a comic memories chat, but no one's got in touch. If anyone wants to do a comic memories chat with me, get in touch, guys. Drop me a line if you want to do a comic memories chat, and we'll do one next Wednesday. Anyway, cheers, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Don't go mad. Don't get killed. Don't kill yourself. Come back next week for the festival. Are you here next week with Rina? You're not sure.
It's not gonna be a happy festival though. So
festival sounds way too optimistic. They're gonna ruin it somehow.
Everyone's gonna kill themselves.
Yeah. Bye.